right? So.
Well, even that the beauty, communicating depth, not being exhaustible.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I read A Brave New World, Aldous Huxley, and it was remarkable because I was also in a Shakespeare play at the time. I was in college and taking a Shakespeare class. And in the story, there's a man. He's been separated from the dystopia, and he's out in the wilderness. He's the savage, and at one point he's experiencing life. He's experiencing all these emotions. He's experiencing suffering. He's experiencing his love for his mother. All these he's experiencing injustice, but he doesn't have a language for it. And then he comes upon the works of Shakespeare. And it's just like, he even says in the book, it says that he finally had a language for the hatred he had for this kind of stepfather figure. He finally had a language for the injustice that he was going through. And it was like, yeah, because Shakespeare had that. Again, it's transcendent. There's a beauty there that even the savage would say, this applies to my life, multivalent.
Right. Well, one of the things I noticed in my clinical practice when I was dealing with people who had been severely traumatized, which almost inevitably meant that they had not only met with tragedy, but with malevolence, because you really need to run face first into malevolence to be truly traumatized. Just tragedy won't do it. That the conversations would immediately get so deep if we were near the core of the problem that it was almost inevitable that the language that they were using and that I was using took on like biblical overtones, because that was the only language that we had at our disposal to be able, well, if you've really been hurt, like if you were sexually assaulted by the uncle that was supposed to take care of you, that was trusted by his sister when you were 4. You've encountered a level of malevolence that requires a language of good and evil, even to explicate, much less to understand. And one of the things you do to people, with people who have been severely traumatized, is that you bring them into an advanced philosophical or even theological understanding of the relationship between good and evil. Because without that, especially if sometimes people are traumatized because they've done malevolent things themselves, and then the only pathway forward for them at all is to develop a sophisticated formulation of good and evil, and that's almost inevitably, in fact, it might have to be inevitably a religious formulation. You could even define a religious formulation that way, is that a religious formulation is a story that provides a sophisticated representation of the deepest levels of good and evil. It's a perfectly good description of religion.
It infuriates you, because it does me, when the new atheists, in that kind of cavalier manner, will just, toss the Bible aside, Bronze Age mythology, old-fashioned pre-scientific nonsense. And what dangerous magic they're dealing with there. I mean, because here's this thing that has defined Western culture, and as you say, undergirds most of our artistic expressions and tracks with our deepest psychological aspirations and needs. What a tragedy when the Bible is trashed that way,
Yeah, well, it's a strange combination of utter oversimplified misinterpretation, right?
Yeah.
To read the Bible as what would you say, an archaic scientific theory, because it wasn't, partly because there weren't scientific theories 2,000 years ago. We could start with that. But then, well, seriously, and then to insist upon the most simplistic possible, depthless misreading of the stories, but then to throw the baby out of the bathwater on the moral side is, it's surprising. It's surprising. Sam Harris, for example, Sam partly insists upon his scientism, let's say, because Sam maybe somewhat uniquely among the new atheists, really did wrestle with the problem with evil. And part of the reason that he wanted to ground a morality in the objective truth was because he wanted to develop a morality that was sufficiently robust that evil could be properly categorized and then pushed back against. And I think the problem with Harris's approach is the kind of objectivity that he is attempting to base science on cannot be reconciled with morality itself. He's got his philosophical categories mixed up badly, and his project has to fail, and I think it has.